The Echoes of My Name, Episode 3, Bernice. Previously, Amara told her brother and sister about the envelope, about the return address in Akure, Nigeria, about the flights she had already been looking at. Elijah confessed that his entire inheritance from their father is one memory, large hands that smelt like soap. And Zuri gave the departure its name, the place we were half made from. Amara is going, that has been decided. But before she books the flight, there is one more door she has to walk through. A brick two-flat in Hyde Park, her mother's house. Mothers who survive disappointment often become the architecture their children build on. Bernice Evelyn Lewis has survived two things that would have dismantled lesser women: the South Side of Chicago in the 1970s and Joshua Oluwadare Ogundele. She would have told you, if you had the nerve to ask directly, that she survived both by the same method. She decided, at a specific and deliberate moment in each case, that she would not be destroyed. Not by circumstance, not by poverty, not by a man who had come from another continent, taken her heart and her years and her belief in softness, and left her with 3 children and a mortgage and a silence so complete it had eventually become a kind of companion. She lived now in the brick two-flat in Hyde Park that she had bought in 1991, the same house she had brought all 3 children home to from the hospital. The house was immaculate. This was not incidental. Bernice believed that a woman's environment was a statement of her interior discipline, and her interior discipline had never once wavered. The floors were swept. The curtains were laundered on a schedule so consistent it had become a kind of liturgy. There were fresh carnations on the hallway table, the real kind, from the market on 53rd Street. Amara called ahead before coming. Bernice appreciated notice. She also appreciated punctuality, proper grammar, and the understanding that a woman who had raised 3 children alone while holding a full-time position at the Chicago Public Library for 31 years had earned the right to a certain level of dignity in her own home. The door opened before Amara reached the porch steps. 2 minutes late, Bernice said. Traffic on the drive. Traffic on the drive is accounted for in proper planning. Hello, Mama. Bernice stepped aside. She was 68 years old and looked, as she always had, like a woman who had decided what she would become and then held that shape against everything the world had sent to alter it. Silver locks pinned back from her face, a pressed blouse in dove gray, a posture so consistent it seemed geological. The house smelled of cedar and good coffee and something baking, sweet potato. Bernice made sweet potato pie when she was either celebratory or bracing for something difficult. And since she had not been told anything yet, the pie was both instinct and precaution. With Bernice, it was usually both. Sit, she said, already moving toward the kitchen. Coffee is ready. Amara sat at the kitchen table, the same table from her childhood. She had done homework at this table, had been corrected at this table, had eaten dinners here that were nutritionally complete and emotionally careful. Bernice's love translated into the language of provision, because the language of tenderness had become harder, after her husband left, to access without it costing her something she could not afford to spend. Love in a different dialect. Real love, fluent in sacrifice, searching for whatever channel through which it could flow without making the woman feel exposed. Bernice set coffee in front of her, 1 spoon of sugar, without being reminded, she always remembered, and sat across the table with her own cup. She did not sit the way people sat when they were settling in for warmth. She sat the way she sat for everything, upright, present, available but not leaning, ready. You wanted to talk, Bernice said, not a question. Yes. Her mother waited. The waiting was one of Bernice's particular skills. She could hold silence the way other people held conversation, comfortably, as though silence were simply another form of language and she was fluent in it. I found something, Amara said, in the back of the second photo album, an envelope, tucked in the back sleeve, pressed flat. I almost missed it. Bernice's face did not change, but something behind it did. Some small internal calibration, barely visible, the kind you could only detect if you had been studying a face for 42 years. An envelope, she said, addressed to him, in handwriting I do not recognize. The return address is in Akure, Nigeria. A pause, deliberate, controlled. I see, Bernice said. Did you know it was there? The question sat between them. Amara had decided on the drive over that she would ask this directly and not look away from whatever the answer was. I knew there were things in those albums I had not fully gone through, Bernice said. That is not what I asked. Her mother looked at her. Bernice's eyes were a particular shade of dark brown that had always seemed capable of holding a room accountable without raising a voice. She looked at Amara with them now and did not flinch. No, she said finally. I did not know that specific envelope was there. Amara believed her, mostly. I want to go to Nigeria, Amara said. She had decided to say it directly, without preamble, without building the case. She had built enough cases in her career. She was not building one for her own mother. Bernice set down her cup with a quiet click that was its own kind of punctuation. To find him. To find something, to go, to see. His parents may still be there. The address may lead somewhere. Amara. Her mother's voice was quiet. His parents are elderly, if they are still living. You have no contacts there, no language, no knowledge of how to navigate. I have found a contact. A man connected through a family acquaintance who knows the area. He has agreed to help me. I have the time, I have the means, and I have the address. She kept her voice even. I need to stop sitting with the question in this city, in this country, where the question has no answer available. I cannot keep waiting at an airport that never gets a new arrival. Bernice was still for a long moment. Something moved through her face, not softness exactly. Bernice did not do softness in visible ways, but something adjacent to it, something that looked like the moment before softness, when a person who has held themselves very tightly for a very long time feels the holding begin to ease, feels the cost of it for perhaps the first time in years. His mother's name was Leah, Bernice said quietly, almost to herself, as though retrieving something from a place she had not visited in some time, and was surprised to find still intact. He spoke of her in the early years, before, she stopped, chose her words, before the later years, when there were other things to discuss. Amara went very still. He spoke of her. In the beginning, yes. Bernice rose and moved to the counter, turning away in the way she did when she was managing something she did not want to manage visibly. She picked up a dish towel that did not need to be picked up. He said she was a woman of deep faith, that being near her made you feel that God was simply in the next room, present, nearby, available without being intrusive. A pause. He said her prayers sounded like conversation, like she was talking to someone she had known her whole life and was on very good terms with. The kitchen held this. What did you think about that? Amara asked carefully. Bernice was quiet for a long moment, still facing the counter, still holding the dish towel she did not need. I thought about it for a long time. After. Her voice had changed, lower, more careful, the way voices become when they are carrying something that has been stored a long time and is heavier than expected upon retrieval. I thought about what it meant that he had been raised by a woman like that, a woman of that kind of faith, that kind of groundedness, and still made the choices he made. What did you decide? I decided that grace is not inherited. It is chosen, every day. And some people simply, she stopped, put the dish towel down. Some people do not choose it. She turned from the counter. Her face had composed itself again. The brief window of something softer closed. He talked about his father less, Bernice said, returning to the table. Stephen. He described him as a man of significant presence and very few words, the kind of father who expressed himself through what he provided and not through what he said. She paused. Which, as you know, produces a particular kind of child. She looked at Amara directly when she said this. Amara looked back at her. The sentence lived in the air between them, acknowledging without naming what both of them understood, that their father had become what his own father had made, and that the pattern had moved forward, not into another generation of silence, but into 3 children who had each, in their different ways, organized their lives around the empty space a silent father left behind. Mama, Amara said, did he ever say what he planned? When he left, did he actually believe he was coming back? Bernice sat then. She folded her hands on the table in the way she folded them when she was being careful. Not guarded, careful, which was different, which meant she was choosing what she gave, rather than refusing to give. He believed it, she said. At first. A silence. He said, she stopped, started again. He said he was going back to fix something. He did not say what precisely. He said, I am going to fix this and I will come back and it will be different. He said this at the airport. Her voice did not change in pitch or quality, but something in it shifted anyway, the way a room shifts when someone opens a window. You were holding your rabbit. Zuri was with the neighbor. Elijah was not yet born. Amara sat very still. Her mother had never described this moment before. Not once in 42 years had Bernice Evelyn Lewis described what had happened at the airport beyond the barest available facts. He left. He did not return. That is the end of it. "You were not supposed to be there," Bernice said. "I had planned to leave you with the neighbor too, but you heard me on the phone arranging it, and you understood more than a 4-year-old should have understood, and you cried. Not the ordinary crying, the kind that—" She pressed her lips together briefly. "The kind that tells you the child knows something real is happening. So I took you." She looked at the table. "I have asked myself many times if that was the right decision, taking you." "Mama." "I do not know the answer. I decided long ago that the question was not productive and stopped asking it." She lifted her eyes. "But you should know that when he knelt down to you in that airport, the way he looked at your face—" She paused. "He loved you. Whatever else is true. In that specific moment, at that specific gate, he loved you completely. And it was not—" Her voice tightened fractionally and then released. "It was not nothing. Whatever came after, that was not nothing." Amara did not speak. She was afraid that if she spoke, her mother would stop. And she did not want her mother to stop, because Bernice Evelyn Lewis had just given her something she had spent 42 years believing did not exist. A witness. Someone who had been there. Someone who had seen. "You are too old to still be waiting for a man who chose leaving," Bernice said. The sentence she had been expected to say. The sentence Zuri had predicted with accuracy. "I know. Going to Nigeria does not undo what he chose." "I know that too." "Then why—" "Because I am not going for him, Mama." Amara looked at her steadily. "I am going for the name, for the people, for the photographs I have been looking at my entire life from a distance. I am going because I am half made from a place I have never been, and I need to stop living with that half dormant and unexamined." She paused. "And because somewhere in Akure, there may be a woman named Leah Oluwatui Ogundele who prayed every morning and kept a photograph beside her Bible. And that woman deserves to know that the photograph grew up." Bernice looked at her. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, very quietly, "Yes." Just the one word. But from Bernice Evelyn Lewis, the one word carried the weight of everything she would not say surrounding it. "Yes, you are right. Yes, go. Yes, I see what you are, and I am proud of it, even if I cannot say that in the way that would be easy for you to receive." She finished her coffee. Her mother cut 2 slices of sweet potato pie and wrapped one carefully in foil for Amara to take, sealing the edges with the particular care that was Bernice's most fluent language. They talked about Elijah's debate team and Zuri's latest client and an event at the church for the literacy program Bernice had helped found after her retirement. They did not talk about Nigeria again, but at the door, when Amara was pulling on her coat, her mother said, to the door frame, not quite to her, in the way Bernice delivered the things she meant most carefully, "Take good shoes. The roads are not what you are used to." Amara turned. Her mother was already walking back toward the kitchen, and Amara stood in the doorway and felt the full weight of what had just been given to her. Not the warm declaration of support a different kind of mother might have offered, but this, the practical instruction. The description of a man kneeling at a gate with love in his face. The word yes, carrying everything it had been asked to carry. "Take good shoes. I see you going. I want your feet to be cared for." It was love. It had always, always been love. It had just taken her this long to stop being hurt by the dialect and start being grateful for the fluency. She sat in a car outside the house for a few minutes after. Engine running, the foil-wrapped pie on the passenger seat. The house looked as it always had, the brick unchanged, the porch swept, the curtains in their correct position. It looked like the house of a woman who had everything in its place, which was true, and was also, Amara was only now beginning to fully understand, a form of love letter. The house was how Bernice said, "I am still here. I have not come apart. I am keeping the place where you grew up so that it will always be available to you. What would it have cost her, Amara wondered, to say the soft things directly? She thought it might have cost her everything. She thought her mother might be one of those people who carried love like a structural element, not decorative, not displayed, foundational. Remove it, and the whole thing falls. And the foundation had never shown, because foundations don't show. You only know they are there because the house is still standing. The house was still standing. All three of them were. She thought about the grandmother she had never spoken to, but whose photograph she had studied until she knew the angle of her chin and the carriage of her shoulders. She thought about what it meant to learn faith from proximity, prayer from the sound of it in the next room, and then to have left anyway. She did not understand it. She did not think she ever would. But somewhere in that gap was a story she did not yet have. And she was going to Nigeria to find the parts of it that had never made it to Chicago, the parts that had lived all this time in red earth and morning prayers and a photograph beside a Bible. Her mother loved her. She had always known this. She was only now learning to feel it without the old grief layered over the top of it. Bernice had been here, had always been here, had kept the house and the coffee and the pie and the good advice about shoes. It was not nothing. It was, actually, everything she had had, and it had been sufficient to make her into someone who could go and be received. The foundation had held. It had always held. She simply had not been standing still long enough to feel how solid it was. She was still enough now. She put the car in drive. She had good shoes. She had everything she needed for where she was going. A compound in Akure, where her name had been spoken across the ocean 42 years ago. Where the red earth that had made her father was still red, and still there, and still waiting to be stood on by someone who had not known she was allowed to stand on it. She was allowed. She was Adeola Ogundele, and she was allowed to go home.
42 years. That is how long Bernice held the airport inside her. The gate, the rabbit, a man kneeling down to a 4-year-old with love in his face. And today, she finally gave it to her daughter. A witness. Proof that it was not nothing. And then she said the one word Amara never expected from her mother. Yes. Bernice survived everything by deciding she would not be destroyed. She raised 3 children on that survival. But what she kept from them, to protect them, she always told herself, is about to become the thing Amara walks toward instead of away from. Because the envelope is still sealed. It has been sitting there this whole time, holding a return address and 42 years of a question. And Amara is about to open it. She has a name, she has an address, and she is allowed to go home. Episode 4, The Address. Subscribe so you do not miss it. The Echoes of My Name.